Hey guys, welcome back to the Prehistoric Life podcast. I'm your host, Eric Crawford, and today we are having another interview with Rex Creek Discoveries. That's their Instagram right there. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Riley Lawson. I work out of Hot Springs, South Dakota. I focus on the Hell Creek Formation in South Dakota, the Lance Creek Formation in Wyoming, and I also dabble in a little bit of mammal fossils in the White River Formation as well.
I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of different time periods there.
Yeah, it's pretty much just local stuff. You know, there's a lot of guys who dig all around the country in different states, but I'm kind of just in this little Black Hills sub-region.
I mean, it's fun either way. I mean,
Yeah.
so the basic question that I pretty much start every podcast off with is, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Well, that's a tough one because as a field paleontologist, someone who spends a lot of time out in the field, probably the best thing you can find is a T-Rex or anything T-Rex related. But if I'm just talking my favorite dinosaur in general, it might have to be the Achiroraptor out of the Hell Creek Formation. It's a dromaeosaurid, and not much is known about it. There have only been isolated discoveries. I know Clayton Phipps found a maxilla. And I think the Achiroraptor is actually Achiroraptor was described based off of that. So, and I personally have found about 3-inch killing claw from an Achiroraptor at one of my sites. So it's just kind of one of those dinosaurs where not much is known about it, and it's kind of one of those.
So it's exciting to basically find anything about it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, would you like to just talk on what you do? I mean,
yeah. So I'm basically exclusively in the field. I don't do research or any of that kind of stuff. I spend my time out there discovering and quarrying some different sites, and trying to find something brand new. It's kind of always been the goal.
I mean, that's a very fair goal. I mean,
yeah. And I also, as you can see in the backdrop, I'm at a museum. This is the World Fossil Finder Museum in Hot Springs, South Dakota. I was the curator here for about 3.5 years, and before that, I helped build and design most of the exhibits here, and so now I'm basically just a fellow here. I kind of hop in and out, and I advise on a few things here and there, but yeah, currently there's a new curator, Sean Larson, and he's doing a really good job here.
So, you got a pretty big fossil behind you.
Yeah, so this is kind of the Magnus. Oh, I have this guy here. This is a Tylosaur. The Tylosaur. It was found near Edgemont, South Dakota. It's very complete, and the skull is actually about 98% complete. It's just missing one cheekbone. But as you can see, it's pretty enormous. 5 feet long skull.
That thing is.
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool project to work on. I did a lot of the grunt work, cleaning off the ribs and cleaning some vertebrae, and we had a guy who's done a lot of big time dinosaur work, Eric Bracapi. He came in and did the mount and a lot of the restoration on it. But yeah, I'm able to say that I scraped away on the ribs for about 6 months.
Seemed probably had a lot of them, and they were really big. So I could see
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and fossils out of the Pierre Shale, they typically, the bone isn't that solid all the time, and so that means preparation is always a little more difficult when the bone isn't super solid. And with this one in particular, it had a layer of gypsum selenite surrounding the bones,
Wow.
which, as you know, is literally a crystal. And
Yeah,
so the gypsum selenite was harder than the inside of the bone. And so that made for a very unique preparation. It's not like, cleaning dinosaur bones can be pretty easy. Sometimes you just kind of hit it with some really hardcore tools and clean her off.
dirt just falls off sometimes. I mean,
Yeah, somewhat. But with this guy, you literally had to go at it with razor blades and Dremels, and you still have to microblast it here and there. But yeah, it was quite the difficult preparation.
yeah, I mean, that seems like it would be a very unique preparation that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can only imagine, like, just not owning the museum, but just curating it. That would seem so fun.
Yes, it was a very fun time, and I learned a lot, because I don't have a degree in paleontology, so I kind of just, I was making a name for myself, making some pretty good discoveries, and that's how I got hooked up with Frank. And Frank was just at a point in his life where he moved up here from Florida to start, some new things, and things just worked out. And I started building the museum. He hired me on to build and design it. And then, kind of as time went, I became the curator, and yeah, worked out well.
So yeah, I mean, connections paid half, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, so now you just mostly work in the field.
Yes, I'm working in the field with my company, Rex Creek Discoveries, and I also have 2 other part-time businesses, L&L Paleontology and Dakota Valley Paleontology, where I work on those with partners.
So you said that you mainly deal with like mammals and the Hell Creek Formation, and there was one other formation I'm just blanking on right now.
The Lance Creek.
The Lance Creek. So those are fairly different time periods.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess which one is your favorite one to look at mostly?
So the Hell Creek Formation and the Lance Creek Formation, they were deposited at a very similar time period. And therefore you get basically the same dinosaurs. Late Cretaceous, T-Rex, Triceratops, Edmontosaurus. But they're deposited on either side of the Black Hills, so they're their own unique. They have their own unique makeups. That's kind of a tough one. The Lance Creek Formation, it has a lot more massive sandstones. It's a lot thicker. So therefore it produces like very interesting looking badlands with toadstools and a lot of wind carved features. And so that's fun exploring that kind of stuff because it just looks like nothing else. The fossils are a little sparse in the Lance Creek Formation, but when you get into the Hell Creek Formation of South Dakota, it's out in the prairie, so there's no massive buttes and like mesas and plateaus. It's just kind of like little draws that cut through the prairie. But the fossils in the Hell Creek Formation of South Dakota are just very prevalent. So I would probably lean towards the Hell Creek Formation of South Dakota. Just better chance of discovery, I think.
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, if you're going out looking for fossils, you don't want to look where they won't be. So
yeah.
I mean, so I'm sure you found a lot of crazy things just out in the field.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah. There have been a few discoveries over the years.
I mean, these creatures, we don't really have 100% idea of what they were really like. I mean, we only really have theories and estimates, so I could only imagine like discovering something.
Yeah, yeah. When you find a bone, it's you don't automatically know what it is right away. As you kind of hunt these formations, you kind of get the population or the what could be there. So there's only 10, 12 dinosaurs that you could feasibly find in these formations. So you find something and you go through the process of elimination of what it could be. You need to know some anatomy. That helps out big time. Um,
I could imagine.
yeah.
So I know that in the Hell Creek Formation, there are different populations of dinosaurs in different areas. So, what kind of dinosaurs and creatures are most prevalent in the area that you tend to stick to?
Um. So one of my areas that I dig is near a town called Faith, South Dakota. Um, and that's known as one of the. There's a lot of places that claim to be the T-Rex capital of the world, um, and Faith is one of them. And there have been a lot of discoveries that back that up. Um, there have been several T-Rexes found within a 20-mile radius of where I dig. Um, what was your question again on that?
So, what kind of like
Oh,
dinosaurs and
kind of
creatures are most
dinosaurs.
prevalent in the
Yeah,
area?
so there's you find a lot of admonosaurs, hadrosaurs. There's some triceratopses that have been discovered out there. Um, there is a really well-known site about like 15 miles from where I dig called the Ruth Mason Quarry. And that was first discovered by Pete Larson. Well, it was actually discovered by Ruth Mason, the landowner, but Pete Larson and Black Hills Institute quarried that site for years and years, decades, and they found thousands and thousands of hadrosaur bones. And from what I know, nothing else. I believe it was all hadrosaurs of different ages, um, and they were all deposited in a 3 foot thick band of clay. Um, yeah, so that possibly leads to the theory that maybe there was like a massive flood that occurred in this prehistoric river. Um, but yeah, so you find a lot of those guys around there. Might be related.
I mean, you need a lot of herbivores to feed all the big carnivores. If you have more carnivores, and populations of herbivores tend to go down, and everything dies. So I can see a lot of hadrosaurs and things like that, whatnot. I mean,
Yeah, and that's something kind of interesting about the late Hell Creek Formation. Dinosaurs were going through a very interesting time in their evolution where you had the biggest or one of the biggest theropods of all time, T-Rex, who had some really unique features too, like very blunt teeth, very large features like a pit bull type head. You compare a T-Rex to like an Acropanthosaurus or a Giganotosaurus, and you look at the profile and they're similar. You look at the bodies and they're similar, but when you really look at the bones and the mass of the bones and the mass of the skull, T-Rex is just like a freak of nature, truly.
it's a very unique build.
Yes, yes. And with that, at the time, they also had the biggest hadrosaur that ever lived, Edmontosaurus. Um, so it's a weird time in dinosaur evolution, right at the end of the Cretaceous.
Because
You know,
I mean, I've been looking at some dinosaur bite force studies, and it seems like the more prevalent the arms are, the like I don't want to say weaker because I still had a really powerful bite force, but
yeah,
on the lesser end of the bite force it had. So I feel like T Rex kind of out evolved its arms,
yeah,
and it And also, I mean, the head is huge. I mean, T-Rex head is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of space for muscle and the jaws for basically that strong bite force. And it would weigh a lot since it was so big. So, I mean, I guess if it did have arms, it would just fall forward on its face.
Yeah, it was very reliant on its head. That's for sure.
And I mean, a powerful bite force probably means that it was a very predatory dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I think personally. Yeah.
So, touching on that, do you think that there is a chance that T-Rex was a scavenger?
Um, I think that they did scavenge. You know, their teeth are perfect for picking things apart. But you know, for a creature to be an exclusive scavenger, that's kind of a stretch, I think. You know, there's no creatures in the world nowadays that are a apex predator that exclusively scavenge. So, you know, and along with that, like, what other animal would take down the baby hadrosaurs in Hell Creek? You know, there's Dakota Raptor, which was big, but and they, of course, if they were a true pack predator, they could have taken down groups. But um, no, I think there was so much meat at the time, you know, with these hadrosaurs, unlike the Ruth Mason Quarry, where it's a single event and they have thousands of individuals that are preserved. Um, you know, I think there's just too much opportunity for predation there.
So I mean, yeah, there's. I feel like the smaller the dinosaur in like the carnivore family, not really the herbivore family, but the smaller the carnivore, the more of a scavenger it is.
Hmm.
So T-Rex probably did do more hunting, but if it came down to it, it probably would scavenge because it needs to survive somehow. But something like Compsognathus or Archaeopteryx probably did more scavenging than active hunting.
Yeah, yeah, you'd think so. You know, or even those little mammals like running around. That would be a pretty good prey option for, you know, one of those dromaeosaurs sitting up in a tree,
I mean,
or even going after the babies. And yeah,
that's what a lot of. That's why Compsognathus was thought to have like a longer head, like a snout kind of thing, more narrow
hmm,
snout, so it could reach into burrows and steal eggs and tiny mammals. I mean, and that is an evolutionary trait, and that makes a lot of sense that it would be like that
yeah, yeah,
versus something like Carnotaurus or T Rex, where it's got the big old bulky head with a more rounded snout. I mean,
yeah.
I don't see T Rex sticking its head in a tiny weasel burrow to try to get a
No,
weasel.
no, they might be a little more intentional with their prey choices.
I mean, and that was also something. So one of the most famous dinosaur movies is Jurassic Park, and they always show the T Rex hunting like humans, kind of chasing after humans. But I really feel like it wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that's
actively hunt that small of prey.
yeah. You're right. And you know, with batteries. Sec, I gotta make sure my batteries.
Take a quick second.
Yeah, you know, they probably wouldn't go after the young ones like that, but yeah. So like, you know, with lions, I like to look at, you know, modern animals as kind of a lesson on maybe how these prehistoric predators, you know, live. They, you know, they'll go after pretty big water buffalo sometimes, but typically they're selecting the weaker one or maybe the one that's by itself, a little slower. Um, so yeah, no, I think there's a lot of insight that you can gain from just looking at how modern creatures predate. because you can't compare a T-Rex to, even though its closest living relative is like an ostrich. There's nothing to compare there, really.
There really isn't.
No.
It's also just kind of difficult in general because we don't really have anything that's like a dinosaur anymore.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, birds are dinosaur-like, but it's like, I don't look at an eagle and go, that's how a T-Rex hunted.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's related to it, but they don't act the same.
Yeah, you got to look at their niches. How, like, what, if apex predator versus an eagle, which is, and they're an apex predator in their own right, but you can't really compare.
It's very different. I mean, like, even with like your example, a lion is still very different to a T-Rex, but some tactics would probably be carried over through generations of whatever strange evolution.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a T-Rex probably didn't hunt in as big as a pride as a lion, so there would be different tactics used. But certain things like targeting the weak and maybe the elderly and the slower, or possibly even the younger in the pack, would make sense.
Yeah.
But the way they brought it down would be so vastly different.
Yes.
It's hard to. That's part of the intrigue of dinosaurs. I mean, we don't really have this 100% clue because, like, a lion, you're just like, all right, we'll send some researchers to Africa to go watch some lions. But like, how did T-Rex hunt? You can't send researchers anywhere to go watch a T-Rex.
Yeah.
So,
there's a lot more to guess on.
I mean, it's a lot of guesswork. We might even figure out that somehow T-Rex jumped on its prey the next 40 years from now, and that might be some weird theory that somebody brings up. I mean,
yeah, I do like the. Have you heard the theory how T-Rex may have like used its arms as like meat hooks and then kind of like ripped at the animal with its feet?
That's a really interesting idea. I mean, I've never really thought about that.
Yeah, because I forget which I believe it's some kind of bird that it'll hold something down with its beak and then it'll rip at it with its feet.
I think that's owls do that. I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a trait that might be kind of like it might emerge. It may have been lost for a long time because traits pop back up. That's just kind of the way evolution works. But yeah, it keeps rearing its head throughout time.
I mean, I saw a study recently about Allosaurus and how it hunted kind of like that. It would hold something down with its foot and then basically just tear at it while it's still alive. I mean,
yeah,
because a lot of imagery shows that like these dinosaurs would like kill their prey completely, then start to eat them. But I feel like a lot of dinosaurs probably didn't have the idea of mercy.
Yeah.
A lot of dinosaurs probably just ate their prey alive. That's just how it is. I mean, I could see a T-Rex just like injuring Edmontosaur enough till it can't really fight back and it's exhausted and slowly dying from like blood loss. And then it's just like, well, there's no point in killing it and wasting energy there, so I might as well just start eating.
Yeah. No, they are not. They're not butchers. That's for sure. They're a little more brutal about it.
A lot more brutal. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's the way it's how the animal kingdom works. A lot of. I mean, humans are very unique in the idea of we use mercy. I mean,
yeah.
We tend to kill our animals, then chop them up and eat them. No other animal really does that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean, they kill their animal enough till it can't move, and then they eat it. So, and I mean, they shed their teeth like sharks. So, I'm sure, like, I'm sure there's somewhere where like a lot of T-Rex just go to shed their teeth. There might be some kind of unique thing like that. Do you think they could have done that with like mark their territory somehow?
That is an interesting theory. I do have a site in South Dakota where I pull out a lot of T-Rex teeth from all different ages of creatures. It's a micro channel deposit, so I'm essentially strip mining it. I'm following the lens of gravel into the hill, um, and there is a strange amount of T-Rex teeth there. When you like look at all the other bones, I find some duckbill bones, a few triceratops here and there, but it is strange how many T-Rex teeth are in this site.
Because I feel like big predators like that wouldn't do a lot of migrating if they have a steady food and water supply in one
Yeah,
area.
yeah. Predators are a different story. They might kind of stay local, like you're saying.
I mean, the herbivores might go off, but then more like if the Montessor leave because they got to go to their breeding ground or go somewhere else to do whatever they do. I mean, a new herd might come into the area. There's no reason for the T-Rex to follow the old herd. I mean, just
Yeah.
stay with the new herd. So they probably have very defined territory that they mark. And I mean, if their teeth fall out about it, I'm sure they were somewhat aware enough to realize that they do lose their teeth. And I mean, I'm sure they did somehow do that. That is a possibility that they could have marked their territory with their teeth. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of touching back on the thing you were saying, like the idea of mercy, and that's more of like a mammal thing, I believe, because like mammals, once we get our adult teeth, there's no replacing them. And if you look at like saber cats, they had to be very selective with their prey, how they bit their prey. They'd go for the throat, they'd go for the kill, um, and so even there, like that might be kind of a contorted view of mercy, like they're going for the kill because it's less dangerous for them. um, and and like you were saying with the theropod dinosaurs, they shed their teeth like sharks. So I think you could kind of look at their predator instinct like the way a shark goes after something. Like they're just biting anything they can bite, tearing anything they can tear, and they're not too worried about their teeth because they replace them. They don't have to protect their teeth.
they're not as worried about. So like you're saying, the Smilodon evolved to be very. What would be the right word?
Particular,
selective.
Yeah.
It evolves very specific traits for very specific prey. It evolved to have long fangs for like the thick jugular of like megafauna.
Yeah.
So a Smilodon's not going for the back; it's going for the neck to kind of very brutally, once you start thinking about it, basically pierce holes into the neck and kind of drown its prey in its own blood until it's dead. It can't breathe. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, dinosaurs probably didn't. Things like T-Rex were probably just like bite. Oh no, some teeth came out. Better keep biting at this thing until it falls over.
Yeah, I would lean towards that as well.
Because a lot of mammals, there are very few mammals that I've seen that are like exclusively carnivorous. A lot of them can eat plants and berries and things like that. I mean, they tend to have molars and then fangs and then other parts of like the teeth. And cats are one of those very rare families that are specifically like mostly carnivore.
Yeah, like hyper carnivores.
So, and I've like you can definitely tell that like a T-Rex, it was exclusively carnivorous.
Yeah, that's for sure.
If it did eat plants, it was very few, and it would have been for like probably like fiber or something.
Yeah, fiber or some type of like medicinal trait maybe, or
I
yeah.
mean, dogs, like canines, they tend to be very carnivorous too, but they also like eat grass and things whenever their stomach is upset. So,
Mhm.
but you can also see that there's like molars that are very look like they're grindy,
Yeah, multi-use kind of thing.
but they also have the canines for biting onto prey. But a lot of theropod dinosaurs, like this dromaeosaur jaw I have here.
Oh yeah.
There's not any area for like molars.
Yeah, that's fairly specialized.
It is very specialized to have a lot of muscle for the bite force and very sharp teeth for just latching into prey and basically holding it down until it stops moving.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's something that a mammal's adapted to, because they were like, oh, well, if we're only carnivorous, then what happens if something happens to all the prey? Oh, then we have to start eating plants too, and then you can actually survive off of that for a short while until the prey comes back. And that is a very mammal thing. I mean,
Yeah.
bears are like one of the largest mammal like carnivores,
Mhm.
land carnivores, and they eat fruits, berries, and like fish and things like that. So
Yeah, that's a good example of one of those kind of all-encompassing creatures.
I feel like marine creatures are also very different in that, because there's not a lot of sea life, like sea plant, that can sustain large creatures like that.
Mhm. Yeah, the marine creatures are very interesting too. And we got a lot of those out here in South Dakota, in the Pierre shales. We actually have like 4 different layers of shale that produce fossils out here surrounding the Black Hills. Um, yeah, and one of the more interesting creatures out of the Pierre shale is the archelon. You know, the giant turtle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the holotype for that was actually discovered. I believe it was discovered near Buffalo Gap, South Dakota, but I might be wrong. But yeah, there have been many big archelon discoveries right around here.
And that definitely is something that those marine predators adapted to. I mean, if there were a lot of giant turtles like that, their jaws would have been stronger, their teeth would have been sharper,
Hmm.
and it's because they got to get through the hard shell. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's how evolution works. I mean, if there's a lot of turtle to feed on, you're not going to get weaker jaws and duller teeth. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
it's just how that basically goes on. I mean, that's just part of how life works. I mean, it's it's a very unique process that, in like the time periods, I love looking at like the time periods, because it's very hard to comprehend, because you can say 145 million years. There's nothing really to like compare that to.
Yeah.
There's no set thing to like compare that to, so you don't really get that idea of comprehension, where it's like, oh well, this dinosaur evolved over a process of 5 million years. You're like, five doesn't sound like a lot, but then you add million to it, you're like,
Hmm.
well, that's a really long time.
Yeah, that is quite a bit of time.
It's what makes these creatures so unique, is that they had so long to evolve into existence and then keep evolving.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, evolution is a very interesting thing. How, it takes a long time to kind of like get your scope of evolution, because people like to look at evolution like it happens in like a static environment, you know. But truly, the one thing that drives evolution is the changing of the environment, Mother Earth. Because if it was a static environment, it would just be ran by like the greatest predators of all time, like the biggest herbivores of all time. But truly, what drives things is the change. And sometimes, when the environment goes to crap, everything dies. It's the weakest animals that survive because the variables have changed.
I mean, it's kind of why dinosaurs didn't just evolve back into existence.
Yeah, yep, they were on their straight path, and that was with their perfect environment. And when that changed, they couldn't adapt.
I mean, the environment nowadays is like there's what is it? The carbon level is 6 times less than it was in the Mesozoic era, so
Yeah,
they really can't evolve back into.
yeah, that would require some pretty drastic changes. That's for sure.
You'd have to build like a special building and then put like a bunch of chickens or something in it and then leave it for a couple million years.
Yeah, the Milankovitch cycles would probably have to stop, and all the ice caps would have to permanently go away for that to happen.
And I mean, that's why the intrigue is there. I mean, you have to figure out what changed because there are definitely vast differences between the Cretaceous, the Jurassic, and the Triassic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to look at what changed in the environment to make these creatures come into existence. And so, like, a lot of sauropods were in the Jurassic period.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of sauropods in the Jurassic period. There are very, very few in the Cretaceous. I won't say none because there were still like some, but
Yeah.
What happened to make sauropods kind of stop evolving?
Yeah, that is a very interesting thing that you're asking. And there is so in the Black Hills, we have the Black Hills are an igneous uplift, and they're surrounded with these kind of like floodplain deposits, the Hell Creek Formation, Lance Creek, and then later on the White River Formation. But surrounding or making up the hogback of the Black Hills are a few Cretaceous layers, like early Cretaceous. There's one of them down here in the southern Black Hills called the Fall River Formation and the Chilson Formation. And there have actually been some discoveries lately in the past few years where they found some of the last sauropods to ever live in North America in some of these layers. And I believe that the Chilson Formation is like 93 million years, they estimate.
I mean, yeah, that's still late Cretaceous period. So
yeah.
So like, and there's still a couple million years between that and the KT extinction.
Yeah. So, and the environment. They always say that Cretaceous is the biggest time period. It has the most range. So I feel like it needs to get broken up a few more times, kind of based on the environmental differences. But
yeah,
my opinion.
I mean, the Jurassic and the Triassic have an early, late, and middle, but the Cretaceous doesn't, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, and maybe it's just our current understanding of things. Like, we don't understand it that well, and that's why it's just grouped together at the moment.
I mean, we've been going on the same standard since like 18 something, so
yeah.
And very few changes have been added to it. I say very few, but it was actually like a lot. So
yeah.
But I mean, something clearly happened to make sauropods stop being the massive creatures that they are and evolve back into something maybe not necessarily smaller, but well, compared to a sauropod, everything's smaller. But
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and like basically they just couldn't survive, at least in North America. In South America, they persisted for quite a while because it was an isolated continent, But
It's a very isolated continent. So, and actually, the little bridge between like Latin America, it's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah, the Isthmus of Panama that sealed up during the Pliocene, I believe. Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a very unique circumstance
Hmm.
that opened that up to let things come into South and North America. I mean,
Yeah.
almost like the land bridge between Siberia and North America.
Hmm. Yeah, that
Wow.
really drove a lot of change.
I mean, that's one of the most infamous things for like creatures coming into America and spreading out in America. So,
Hmm.
and also, I mean, you think about that Mexico Gulf area. I mean, that's where the asteroid supposedly hit in that area. So, I could see that maybe not the best preserved area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing, like preservation bias. There's just look at anywhere. Where do you live?
I mean, I live in South Carolina, so
Yeah, so look at South Carolina. There's, you got a lot of rivers where deposition is occurring, but then you guys also have a little bit of the Appalachians, right?
yeah, I
So
think
so there's really no deposition occurring there besides some isolated valleys, um, and if you look at creatures that live exclusively in the Appalachians, they're not going to be preserved as well as the creatures that live down in the coastal plains, where they're getting buried in river sediments. So there's always that preservation bias there.
I mean, also like where I live, South Carolina, North Carolina, down to like Florida used to be an ocean.
Yeah.
So we don't get a lot of the big sauropods and theropods and hadrosaurs. I think we have a hadrosaur like really far north in South Carolina,
Sure.
but that's probably like a very rare thing. But
Yeah.
so we get a lot of things like shark teeth and dolphin teeth and mosasaurus teeth and Annamites and trilobites and ocean dwelling creatures,
Hmm.
ancient squids. We get a lot of that, and that is preservation bias. I mean, you're not going to find dinosaurs where there weren't dinosaurs.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And also, you won't find dinosaurs where they were incinerated. So, I mean, a giant rock falls on them. I mean, right next to that impact, I would imagine that a lot of damage was caused, and a lot of the dinosaurs in that area were a little or less preserved than the other side of the world, like China or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very interesting thing to think about. Like, what the animals living in modern day Mexico, the dinosaurs living in modern day Mexico, what they even could have been at the time, because you'd probably have to go 500 miles inland to find the record of that away from the blast site.
Because I mean, once you get far enough away, the only real problem is like ash in the sky. I mean, like other rubble kind of falling on the animal, but there is like definitely a radius where A, the asteroid crushes the creature, B, it's coming in thousands of miles an hour into the
Hmm.
atmosphere. So there's going to be fire and what knows, basically incinerating the creature. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard force to even fathom.
it's such a one-off idea that I mean, it basically is the only real account of that. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's not many instances of that happening. And plus, you got to think of the massive tsunami that came too.
I mean, yeah, that did help preserve probably a lot of creatures
Yeah.
because I mean it would wash them away, wash them onto the bottom of the ocean, and over millions of years. I mean, tectonic plates too. They will slide apart and it'll bring some onto land. And I mean, the world's not the same. It was the world is not the same way it was millions of years ago.
Hmm.
It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you even like look at a map of like South America and Africa, it looks like they just kind of clip together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, that's a funny thing because, you know, before the idea of plate tectonics was truly accepted, you know, little kids would say to their moms, you know, Mom, doesn't it look like South America and Africa to go together? And they'd just be like, oh, kids, you know, silly kids. But
and now it's like, oh, well, they're on tectonic plates that actually used to be together.
yeah, they do clip together, or they did clip together.
They literally did clip together. That was a thing that happened. And that also is an interesting idea. I mean, whenever Pangea was a thing, you get a vast variety of life. And the most famous example I can think of is Iguanodon. You find Iguanodon like everywhere.
Yeah.
They found it in Europe, North America. They found some in South America. I think they found one in Australia too, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, clearly there's a time where it's like, since it was all together, several species just kind of spread out everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's actually an iguanodon that was found in the Black Hills too. It's called Decotodon. And it was found in one of those like sandstone hogback layers too, early Cretaceous.
And that also is reservation bias.
Yeah.
I mean, you get all the what do they call it, continents together, because they all kind of at one point blended together. And I mean, at that point in time, whenever that was like that, species definitely did go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely also does affect later dinosaurs, because I mean, the Cretaceous period, the Earth was looking a lot more like modern Earth that we know it, but it was not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean there.
The continents were starting to split apart. They're starting to drift. There were still parts of the world covered up by ocean, so there's that. But whenever it isolated those creatures, you can definitely tell that they went on their own evolutionary paths due to the environment. So, and I do feel like that's why you find similar hadrosaurs all over the world, but they're all the species are so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very interesting kind of like, you know, linear feature where you can see all these creatures that coexisted when the continents were closer together, and as the continents drifted, you know, natural selection occurred, and you know the creatures also drifted. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure natural predators were cut off from their prey, so I mean, they had to find new prey. They had to evolve to hunt that prey, and that just basically becomes a new species. So, as prey evolves to defend itself, hide from, run from, even face against predators, the predator has to evolve to continuously take down the prey.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's why the Cretaceous is, because the Jurassic, a lot of the creatures look very, I don't want to say similar, because there were a lot of unique creatures, but they had like a very familiar architect between all of them.
Yeah,
If that makes sense. But the Cretaceous period, there were a lot more different, unique species
mm-hmm.
than the Jurassic. And that definitely is part of that. So I feel like that's definitely part of that. And I mean, it's why you find all different types of Tyrannosaurids. Like you have like Gorgosaurus, you have Albertosaurus, Tarbosaurus, and then you have like Tyrannosaurus. Yet they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they're from different parts of the world. They hunt different prey. and I feel like that's definitely why there are different ceratopsians. I mean, different parts of the world, different environments, different needs. That's why it's not just Triceratops.
Yes. Yeah, that is a very interesting thing. Different tyrannosaurids, different ceratopsians, how they all kind of differentiated towards that Cretaceous time block.
I mean, you can definitely trace them. You can probably trace them back to one individual species where you're like, oh, well, this is the father of all tyrannosaurids, and you can see where it was split off and changed to fit Australia. It grew smaller because creatures there grew smaller because they didn't have as much plant life or whatever. I mean, it's you don't need to be. And that could have been why sauropods kind of evolved out of existence in North America. Maybe something happened that we're not seeing where a lot of plant life died off, and so it couldn't sustain being this massive creature. So then they had to shrink into something else. And as they did, predators changed to hunt them, and they adapted into specific species, specific features to defend against the predators.
Yeah, those really early Cretaceous sauropods are very interesting to me, and that's part of the reason why I want to find, an early Cretaceous sauropod around the Black Hills. There's a lot of public land out here, so you can go out and look for the fossils. You just can't touch them or excavate them or disturb them in any way. But so these canyons out here, they're very desolate, isolated. There's not many trails running through them, and so therefore there hasn't really been that much research into these formations in the foothills of the Black Hills. And a couple of buddies or myself and a few buddies, we go out a few times a year backpacking through some of these almost forgotten canyons because, like I said, there's no trail systems. There's no, there's not like Custer State Park where that's all the tourists go. Like, so we go out and we camp, we're out there to have a good time, but we're also kind of hoping that we come up on a cliff face with a brand new dinosaur exposed, because there is a good chance of that out there. There hasn't been that much intrigue into that area.
I mean, yeah, there again, going back to the preservation bias, sauropods definitely, like, if you think about it, they're fossil, like their bones, they're huge, they're dense, they're very solid.
Mm-hmm.
They would preserve very easily.
Yeah.
They can, you would find them I don't want to say find them because that's one thing, but they would preserve very easily because it's harder to break them since they're so massive and dense. But something like Compsognathus, Archaeopteryx, even pterosaurs, where they have smaller hollow bones because it flies or it soars or just tiny in general, they're harder to find, they're harder to preserve. So there's God knows how many species that just we will never know about because their bones just couldn't preserve.
Yeah. That is an interesting thing, the whole preservation bias part.
It's kind of why pterosaur bones are so rare to extract and so difficult to extract. It's just the way that they were preserved.
Yeah. There's there have been some pretty good pterosaur discoveries out here in the Pure Shale, and the shale formations, which was an ocean at the time. Yeah, near Buffalo Gap, South Dakota. If you go to the South Dakota School of Mines Museum, they have some really nice pterosaur wings on display that were found in these oceanic deposits, which is like, they were flying around the ocean, scooping up fish maybe, or feeding on smaller pterosaurs. And they die and they float to the bottom of the ocean, and they're preserved immaculately sometimes.
That is very rare feature, and that's primarily because of that preservation bias. It's they don't have to deal with as much weathering, they do have to deal with erosion, because I mean that's probably something that happens very rapidly on the bottom of the ocean. But
Yeah.
I mean, the weather doesn't affect them. They don't have to deal with wind. They don't have to do if they sink really far to the bottom. I mean, I'm sure a lot of predators don't go down that deep, so
Yeah.
they don't have to deal with scavengers, because I mean that can definitely affect it.
Yeah. Better chances of preservation there. That's for sure.
You get tectonic plates will carry some dinosaurs in two different areas that might split up a fossil, but then you also have predators of the time that might have scavenged. So if T-Rex was needed to scavenge and they came across a dead Triceratops, they can be like, well, rip the leg off and carry it all the way over here and start eating it. I mean, in case there's another T-Rex or some bigger species that we don't know about. I mean, you can see it in modern animals. Like coyotes will take parts of cow apart and carry it off. I mean, they won't just stay in one area.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely see that a lot out fossil hunting. You know, there will be a cow that one year it's mostly complete, and then the next year it's just a rib cage and a head carried off, and then, you know, as weather gets to it, all the ribs will scatter and the vertebrae will scatter and begin to break down. So
yeah, it's not just, it's like it is the ecosystem, but it's not 100% natural like tectonic plates and weathering.
yeah.
It's sometimes other creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you said you're mostly in the field. So do you have any crazy, exciting, interesting stories you'd like to share from that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess just it's become normal to me, but like there's so many like, I don't know, the things that stand out for me besides the fossil discoveries is like the extreme weather in the field. And I guess that might not be something you want to talk about, but no, that for me, that's what kind of stands out. You know, the instances where you're up on a butte and there's not supposed to be any rain all day, but you see off in the distance just a big rainstorm coming right at you, and you know, okay, time to batten down the hatches and cover up the dig site.
And that does affect fossils, because
Yeah,
if you start to expose some, maybe they're not going to be used to weathering. So
yeah, that's always something.
And
yeah, that's always something you're thinking about, like digging channels in the site for good water drainage, because sometimes it's unavoidable. You're going to get flooded out. But as long as your bones aren't sitting in the bottom of a basin, you know, it's not good for fossils to get wet, especially these dinosaur fossils. But if you can avoid them being soaked, that's a good thing for sure.
I mean,
yeah, there was actually there was this one time that we were out digging at one of my sites in South Dakota, and we just get this wicked rainstorm, like out of nowhere. You know, it was actually a derecho. That's an event where like this I think it's like right on the end of a high pressure system. So it can be just a clear day, and then you get this wall cloud that's right on the edge of the system. And that comes with 60, 70 miles an hour winds.
okay.
And it just races across the prairie. And so yeah, we were digging, just beautiful day, mid August, and then we see this wall cloud coming, and I knew instantly that it was a derecho. So and they come very fast.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And so we tried to get all the tarps on. We tried to get our awnings, because we dig with awnings. You don't want sun beating on you all summer.
I get that.
And then just the torrential rain and hail comes, and so we get in the truck, and it just came. It just destroyed my awning. It carried my tent off about 50 yards, snapped a few poles, and with these derechos, like you can watch them. You can almost see the other side, like the blue sky, as it's hitting you. So
Almost
this
like you
one,
can just see the whole storm.
yeah, it's like just a wall cloud. You can see it. It just disappears into the horizon on both sides of you.
Seems like a very unique phenomenon that doesn't.
Yeah. Look into that. Derechos are very interesting. But yeah, so this thing is just hitting us, destroying our tents, 60-mile-an-hour wind. But we have like blue skies on one side. And then this phenomena that happened, and I have tried researching it. I've tried looking into it. So after the derecho hit, the wind's coming at us 60 miles an hour. And then just as it's about, like right above us and just about passing, the wind's reversed. And it was blowing the opposite way, like
It just
60
came
miles.
back at y'all.
Yeah, well,
Like, no, I'm not done.
yeah, the
Wow.
rain, it was interesting because the derecho was past us, the rain was past us, but the wind reversed. It was like a dry wind.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And
It was not done with your dig site.
no, so like, my awning was just like flapping in the wind during the derecho, like 60 miles an hour, just torn up. And then as it kind of the rain petered off, it like went limp, and then it was just the opposite way, 60 miles an hour. And
it was not done with your dig site.
No. And yeah, so that's something it's a phenomena that I have not been able to find anything about, a wind reversal like that.
I'm sure derechos is like a very, I don't want to say rare, but it probably isn't as common.
No, yeah, maybe once every 2 years.
So you get like one every 2 years, and then the like 1 in a million chance that it just turns around on you.
Yeah.
It comes back at you. It's like,
yeah, quite unique.
Maybe you should play the lottery.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, so would you like to talk on some of your discoveries? I mean,
yeah, so
those are amazing.
you can go up, you can basically go out into like any of these badlands, and you're gonna find chunks of bone. You might find a decent bone eroding out. So there's a lot of dinosaurs out here. I haven't really made anything too scientifically important. I wouldn't even say I have found anything very scientifically important. But I've worked on a few triceratopses.
It's always fun.
They're cool, yep. And you have to prepare them and uncover all the dirt, and that's where you might find something new and exciting about the creature. I'm actually working on a triceratops with one of my businesses, Dakota Valley Paleontology, with my partner Carlton Baird, and we are excavating a triceratops, and it has some really unique features to it. It has massive brow horns, about just a hair under 3 feet long, so that's like pretty enormous.
Yeah,
it has. But the weird thing about this site, the whole animal's disarticulated, and the skull is all disarticulated. So that means it wasn't fused together like an old aged animal. And so it has these weird features of massive horns, unfused, small. The maxillas are very small on it. I found a part of the frill, and it has a very peculiar hole in it. It's not like quite like a Torosaurus. It might be, but yeah, it's just like a hole about that big, and it doesn't appear to be pathological. So that's one of those things where you gotta you got to quarry the site for 3 years to come up with the whole skull, and then you put the skull together, and that's when you start to realize some of these really unique features of it.
So I mean, yeah, it's not something that's. So could it be natural, or could it be like some kind of weird birth defect?
Um,
I mean,
no, I think it's something unique. I don't think this creature like got hit in the back of the head when it was little, and now it's developing weird. I do think it's truly a unique Triceratops that we're digging in.
huh?
And it could be a birth defect. There's a chance maybe it could be some type of pterosaur or maybe a new type of Triceratops.
That would be
Yeah,
exciting.
the nose horn on it is just small, very small. It doesn't look like Triceratops Paratus or Prosus. So yeah, massive brow horns, weird frill, tiny nose horn, small maxillas. It's a very unique creature that we're digging on.
I mean, I kind of hope it is a new species because that'd be very interesting and
Yeah.
very, very exciting. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So this site, we call it the Brick House because it's preserved in a strange river, like a river system, and it has layers of, it'll be like an inch of sand, an inch of clay, an inch of shale, an inch of sand, an inch of clay, and so that produces these bricks of sediment. Like I've never seen anything so difficult to dig in the Hell Creek Formation.
you're like,
Sometimes you'll get dinosaurs that are preserved in like iron in the Hell Creek,
oh wow, that would be.
but this is actually, it's just preserved under these bricks, and like really the only way to uncover it is to you stick shims into the layer and try to split these bricks off.
Basically just try to pry it off and then you just.
Yeah, realistically, that's the only way this dinosaur can be excavated. You can't dig this thing up carefully, like, and I mean carefully. I'm a very careful field paleontologist, so like I'm not just going in there. I know where the bones are preserved among this layer, so above that we'll be digging with crowbars, pickaxes, but then you get to the layer where the fossils are going to be. And then you slow down a little bit. You use some different tools. You shift gears.
Switch up the tools, be a little bit more gentle.
Yeah. But above that, man, this is. Oh, and we also use hammer drills at this site. It's just, it is a truly unique Hell Creek Formation there.
So I mean, it could be a Torosaurus. It could be some weird birth deformed Triceratops. I mean, it could be a completely new species. That seems.
Yeah.
I mean, until you like really fully excavate it, I mean, there's not going to be a definitive answer until.
Yeah, and we do have the brain case, which is very important identification. So yeah, we have the brain case. We have a few parts of the frill. We have both lower jaws. We have one of the maxillas. We have part of the upper beak, the rostrum. We got the nose horn. Both brow horns. And I think that's it for the skull. We found a good amount of postcranial, vertebrae, ribs, but this site has mostly produced cranial elements, which is interesting. So that's what we're hoping for. More of that. Maybe the frill. Lower beak will tell us a lot about the animal. The jugals. We don't have either of the jugals yet. So yeah, it's a lot of fun digging there, and it truly does feel like we're on something unique with this site.
So that seems like a very unique find. I mean,
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like that something like that happens every day. I mean,
no, and like I've dug on a few other Triceratopses where it's like, okay, this is kind of the standard Triceratops. And,
I can identify this as a Triceratops pretty easily.
yeah.
I mean, So other than that mystery ceratopsian, do you have any other rare finds or unique circumstances?
So when I was out with one of my businesses, L&L Paleontology, with my partner Sean Larson, we dig in the Lance Creek Formation. That's where we focus on for that business. And as I mentioned earlier, the Lance Creek Formation, it can be kind of sparse. With a lot of big like wind carved buttes and like big sandstone layers where you won't find anything, and then there'll just be like one little layer of clay where you find a bunch of fossils.
Yeah, I mean,
so we were out. I think this was it was late in the season, maybe like October of last year, and I found these pieces of Ankylosaur scute, or actually Nodosaur scute, and so they were. And you can always tell Nodosaur because the bone is different. They grow slower. Very dense bone with kind of like like a burl, like wood. It'll have like very interesting patterns in it. So Ankylosaur bone looks like that a lot of the time. And so we start digging on these scutes, and we think that it's like two separate scutes. And as we uncover them more, we kind of found out that it was two fused neck scutes. So like it made up, if you look at a Nodosaur skeleton, they have this kind of like a neck yolk, and it's like four scutes that are fused together. And so that was a big discovery. Nodosaur is very rare, and then on top of that, to find those scutes is extremely rare. So that was that. It was a good discovery. We're very happy with it. And we went back the next year, the beginning of this year, to hopefully find more of this animal, because it's Nodosaur is so much more rare than T-Rex. It's probably one of the most rare large dinosaurs that you can find in the Hell Creek Formation.
I could probably imagine.
Just slow gestation. That's kind of the leading theory. They were like, they just didn't mate that often. It probably took longer for them to.
They seem very solitary animals.
Yeah, solitary. So we were very excited about this site. And we went back there to quarry it out. We dug probably like 6 feet back. We didn't find a single scrap. We were kind of dejected and disappointed. And so in this site, this whole valley for that matter, it's all mudstone, claystone, with very little sandstone and like no concretions. So you can basically assume like it's all soft dirt as opposed to like this hard, sandstone. And in the Nodosaur site, there was this rock off to the side of the site that we always, we thought it was a little peculiar.
It seemed very one-off, kind of random.
Yeah, kind of one-off, but we really didn't put too much thought into it because we were trying to find a Nodosaur skull. Like we just had visions of grandeur. We really thought we were going to find something cool at that site. And so we were like, all right, well, I guess we'll expand the site a little bit to the side. It's time to destroy this rock, this concretion.
See what's there.
Yeah, or to see what's under it. And we kind of chipped off a little bit of the top of it and exposed some of the side. And we realized it was a sandstone footprint. Yeah, an enormous footprint. And it's actually from an Edmontosaurus. So yeah, a lot of the times with footprints, you'll find the positives where they'll be in like a or I mean the negatives when they'll be in like a wall. Yeah, and like you'll see the imprint. But with this particular example, because I said it's all soft dirt, mudstone, so it stepped down into the mud, and then there was a depression, and then in that footprint came some sand.
Huh.
And so it filled in. It's a footprint cast, and then on top of it, more mud accumulated. So it's just this isolated,
just like random chunk of like sandstone.
yeah, and it's enormous. I took it up to Pete Larson at Black Hills Institute. He took a scan of it. He was very intrigued. And yeah, he said it's one of the bigger examples of a monosaur footprint. It's 28 inches across.
Wow.
And 32 inches long. So
that thing was massive.
Enormous. Probably a 45 foot long Edmontosaur. As big as it.
Yeah. That's a very unique situation to come in there.
And so after that, our focus shifted on the site because Pete Larson said, well, if there's one footprint here,
there's probably more.
There's probably one behind it. And so we went, and he showed me a few documents of large hadrosaur trackways. And we figured out that a hadrosaur stride is approximately 9 feet from heel to toe. And so then, we went back there. We were hoping to find more. We quarried 9 feet further back. And we didn't find another footprint, unfortunately. So
that was the only footprint?
I think so. Yeah, we dug 9 feet back, 6 feet to each side. We were really hoping for another one, but and maybe it was just a little 10-foot wide creek at the time with some nodosaur bones in it, because the footprint was like nearly above these bones. So
wow.
So like, if you just want to theorize on what happened, like it was a little creek with some like mud in the bottom. And if like the nodosaur was already dead, it was already scattered.
It very well could have been that, since that's like the only footprint you found, it was a very unique situation where it was just like mud and there's a little bit of sand up here, and when it stepped into it, the sand just had to fall into it because of gravity.
Yeah.
And it just stepped over all of the mud and into like just normal sand and just kept walking. So
yeah,
I mean, that's always a possibility too. It's just a very unique situation to happen. So I mean,
yeah, so that's one of the more just super random discoveries that I've made.
Just, all right, we found a nodosaurus. Oh, this is cool. Oh, wait, that's an Edmontosaur right there.
Yeah.
Just completely switch focus and change it up.
Yep. Yeah, and in that, when we were looking for the other footprint, we were like, well, there's a good chance we'll find more nodosaur elements. This gives us an excuse to expand the pit a little bit, but not a single other bone, unfortunately.
So it was a very, not small, but very cut off part of the nodosaur.
Yeah, it was quite an isolated little site. Yeah.
Which is kind of odd to think. I mean, it could have been that since it could have died in a creek and washed away, and somehow something scavenged it and the bone got weakened, and disgustingly enough, part of it split apart and kept going.
Yeah.
Down a creek or a river. I mean, there are very unique circumstances, and sadly, there's no way to go see what happened.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Just go back in time, see where the dinosaur dies, and come back now, and you're like, right there. Every single time I find a fossil.
Yeah. I've definitely sat around the fire talking about that with people, like, gosh, if only we could see where the T-Rex died, then we could learn some equipment.
Unique ability. And you would have to become a paleontologist. I mean,
yeah, if you had that knowledge, there would be no other choice.
I mean, it's like, I have bone detecting powers. I mean, like, okay, want to come out to my quarry and see what you find?
Yeah, right.
I mean, be a heck of an ability for a paleontologist.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I mean, so I know you're a busy man. You probably got places to be and things to do.
Yeah.
I guess I'll let you go.
All right. Well, it was good talking with you, Eric, and good luck with your podcast. And maybe I'll be able to hook you up with some of my colleagues and
That
whatnot,
would be
some more podcasts.
greatly appreciated. And thank you
Definitely.
for coming on. I mean,
Yes.
it's always just a pleasure just having the ability to talk to somebody who just does what I want to do. So,
Yeah, stay in touch. If you come out here,
Definitely.
we'll have to go on a dig. I'll take you out.
That would be awesome. I mean, that's basically my dream, and I'm trying to just work towards that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess I'll let you go.
All right.
I'll stay in touch.
Yep. Nice talking, Eric. We'll see you.
Nice talking to you too. So that was the Rex Creek Discoveries field paleontologist. Amazing guy. Be that way. No, it's that way. Go check out his Instagram. It should be right there. I don't know. This is probably going to come out horrible in actual footage. Go check it out. I mean, you got a lot of great stuff right here. So that looks so goofy. Yeah, go check it out, man. He's got a lot of great content. So please go check that out. And very amazing dude, very kind. So glad that he could actually come onto the show and talk to me and everyone who's listening, because I'm sharing this experience with all of you. So, I mean, please return the favor of him coming on and go check out his content. It's right there. So, yeah, as you can see, he's posted a lot of great stuff about finds and as a huge Tyrannosaur tooth. And while you're on there, go ahead and gotta load. And go ahead and while you're checking that out, go check out the Prehistoric Life Podcast Instagram page. That's where I post all of the knowledge, all of the exclusive content. That's where you get reminders. That's where you know about podcast episodes coming up, interviews, special videos, basically whatever I'm going to do for the week. I try to post on there and talk about somewhere on there. But I mean, and if you really want all of the content in one place, please go check out the website, because that is where all of it is displayed. On here, you can see all of the interviews, all the special videos. You can go check out the YouTube and the Instagram. And from there, you can get to the YouTube and Instagram. And that's where I plan on, if I ever do fossil sales or merch, that's where all of that will be. So please go check that out. And also, while you're down there checking things out, you might as well go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I try to post everything early on there. I post some shorts, and that's where all the videos I try to put them up early. As you can see, and I'm filming this really early because this episode hasn't even come out yet, and it will be out by the time I upload this, and you can definitely tell. So go check out the YouTube, the Instagram, the website for all of the combined information. And until next time, I'm your host, Eric Crawford. I will see you all next time. And remember, keep it prehistoric. Goodbye.